and founder of Generational Wisdom. And today we are going to talk about a topic that every parent really wonders, but they rarely get guidance. So we're going to learn how to talk to our kids, our young kids, about money. And with me today is Darla Bishop, speaker, author, co-author of an amazing new book coming up. And I am just so excited to welcome you, Darla, to our community and to share some of your wisdom with us today.
My gosh, Julia, thank you so much for having me. And full disclosure, Madeline, the co-author of Madeline's Money Adventure, is home not feeling great, so we might even get to meet her.
Oh, love it.
She
And
may pop her head in and say, "Mama."
that is the reality of motherhood, of
Yeah,
parenting, right? We carry both of these titles, these hats at the same time. So, you and I met at a conference for
yeah.
money nerds,
Oh
and
yeah,
not everybody is a money nerd. So, tell me a little bit about how you got into financial education, financial
yeah.
literacy.
It was
What
really
brought
my
you to this topic?
Yeah, it was really my own journey to want to understand money. I remember growing up, we had a lot of lean times, right? And I remember having this very distinct memory, not necessarily of a particular thing that happened, but of this feeling of we wouldn't be going through this if we just had more money. And when I went to college, thanks to a very generous scholarship, I noticed that many of the other 17 and 18-year-olds just had a completely different understanding of money, the way they used it, the way they thought about it, the way they talked about it. When their parents would visit, the way their parents would kind of interact with us and, take us places and do things with us, right? And I was like, oh, but if I got to this school with as many hurdles and barriers and they didn't have them and we are in the same place, I must be as smart, maybe even smarter. So I'll study money. Maybe if I study money, maybe if I figure out how it works, because there's a book about everything, then I can have a better financial situation and a better relationship with money. And so I use some of my student free time, which when you're a student, it doesn't feel like you have free time. But now that I'm at this stage in life where I'm parenting, I'm like, oh yeah, I had a lot of free time back then. I
Yeah,
use some of that time
newsflash,
to,
you don't get
yeah,
less busy. It's not when you
right.
graduate that day comes that you're done. No, yeah, not at all. It gets
No,
worse, not
yeah.
better. Sorry, y'all that are
Yeah,
younger
it's
and listening.
okay. It's okay because it's also filled with different things, right? And so I started studying money, and over the course of my life, have read more than 130 books and about money and career and mindset, and decided to write my own because there were some things missing. And at some point in 2024, my daughter was helping me pack a bulk order of How to Afford Everything. That's my book. She said, "Well, mommy, when do I get a book?" And I said, "Well, sweetie, we can write a book, but it has to be about money because that's what I know a lot about. So if you want to write about something else, then I might not be able to help you. But if we write about money, I can help you with it." And so the idea was born. And I told her, "Well, can I give mommy some time to find someone to draw the pictures?" And she said, "Yeah." And we found someone to illustrate it. And then one day when I was able to kind of have some alone time with her, because I have another child, I said, "Well, can you tell me that story again?" Because she'd kind of told it to me before, and I recorded her and we transcribed it and we turned it into a story. And soon it'll be on bookshelves all around the world, according to her.
I just love that. And you have spent many, many years both academically pursuing training. What have you seen is maybe the biggest difference between classroom knowledge and then behaviors and like how you apply everything you've learned and the audiences you work with, the families you work with? What's that biggest difference?
The difference is there's a different type of awareness when you're learning something in a book, especially if you're not exactly sure if the person who's telling the story or the lesson has been in your shoes. And so it's kind of easy to dismiss, well, that might have worked for that person, that might have worked for the author, but I don't know if it would work for me. And I think the other piece is we discount, because I just think we don't think about it, how many of the things we think about when it comes to money came from the grown-ups around us and how we still use them, whether they are useful to us or not. So if you take a moment and like take a deep breath and kind of time travel in your brain to what are some of the things your parents said, and probably not directly to you, but around you while you were having a snack or playing in the area about money. What were the things that they did with their money? What were the things that they said versus did? Because sometimes they don't always match. What are the lessons they explicitly taught you, and did their behaviors match or not match those? And I think until you kind of pause and say, huh, my mom always said this phrase, but that doesn't make sense for me. So I'm going to say thank you to that phrase or that belief. And it totally saved her, or might have even saved me at a different point in my life. But it's not really relevant right now. So I'm going to say thank you and release it. That can make a big difference, because some of the gifts the grown-ups around us give us are absolutely gifts, but are not necessarily able to put to good use in our context.
Oh, that is such a good reflection. And I like to call that the belief backpack.
Hmm.
When you're a kid, your parents pack your backpack for you and you carry
Yes.
around whatever they put in it. It's all good intentioned, right?
Yep.
But it might not be what serves you now as an adult. You don't have to carry around that same backpack. You can unpack some of those things, dried up markers or crayons or notebooks, and you get to refresh it. And then now that we are parents, it's really important that we show up with a healthy backpack so that we can pack our kids and the next generation, which is why I love that she is seeing what you're doing, the role modeling of teaching what you know, loving what you do, and being more than just a title or just a job. She had that calling to be an author. So if I'm sitting around your dinner table, how much are we talking about money? And how much is just normal 6-year old chit chat at the dinner table?
All of it, because I think that's the part that we forget in any of our relationships, right? Whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a relationship with, even to an extent, people at work, with our children, that a lot of the conversations we have are about money, not directly, but indirectly, because we are expressing the things that are important to us. We're sharing the ways that we prefer to spend our time versus how we feel like we need to or have to spend our time. And those are all, in some ways, money conversations, right? And so if we're at the store and one of my kids asks for something, that's a really great time for me to say, oh, I'm so glad that you're interested in that toy or that candy. And do you remember why we said we were going to the store? We need trash bags and light bulbs. Did we get the trash bags and light bulbs, right? Kind of reinforcing that our activities do have a purpose, and that while sometimes we're able to do things a little bit differently or to stray from the plan, that it's also important for a lot of reasons to stick to our plan. So if our plan was to come to the store for trash bag and light bulbs, if we get candy and forget to get the trash bag and light bulbs, tomorrow when we're in our kitchen we'll say, oh no, we forgot the trash bags and light bulbs, right? And so that there are all these opportunities to express the way that you wish to live and explain that in really developmentally appropriate ways, and then kind of tie the money into it really solidly. Because in a lot, again, all of these are in some ways money conversations. Why you decide to work, how much you work, whether you leave the home to work or you do most of your work at home, whether you go, I do a lot of speeches. So, oh, well, mommy has to go give a speech. Well, how come you have to go give a speech? Well, sweetie, when I go give a speech, I help to teach someone else about some of the things you already know. And I want everybody else to be as smart as you, right? That there are really intentional ways that we can frame the same conversation, but it feels completely different.
I love that. Being able to frame it, budgeting is not a bad thing. It's not a B word. Budgeting, when you reframe it, is purpose. And
Yeah.
so, what are some other either myths or things that you kind of want to reframe, especially as we talk to kind of the consumers of this book? So those early elementary, potentially even preschool kids, what would you want to reframe that they are learning and that they are hearing from those well-intentioned adults around them?
Yeah, so it's wanting to tap into, I think a lot of times, and I don't think as parents we mean to do it. I really don't. We are very quick to say, no, we're not doing that. We can't afford that. And what message does that give to your kids over time? and instead to say, oh, well, that wasn't in our plan, right? Because then that feels, and they get a sense of, oh, there's a plan and we have some control versus, oh, we just can't do that, we can't afford that. And in a time right now where a lot of families are struggling because of changes in the stock market, changes in how the federal government is and isn't doing things, right, certain industries being impacted, and so parents may be losing income or jobs altogether, that these conversations may need to come up more frequently about that. Can we do this? Yes or no? And that if we get into the habit of talking about it as a, instead of a yes or no, because I don't think it's always a yes or no, that a lot of times it's about the order. Well, first we have to do this part, then we can do this part. And I think that gives everyone, not just kids, a really healthy way to think about things, that, okay, we can do all the things we want, maybe just not at the same time. Or it's really important for us to do this part first, because then when we go to do this part, we're already taking care of something that has to be done, that cannot be skipped.
I love it. And even at the youngest of ages, they know the order, the morning routine, right? Where you
Yeah,
need to eat your breakfast before you brush your teeth. Like the
right.
order matters. And so being able to lean into some of the things they're probably already doing. And a question I get a lot that I'm curious your take on is, when should I start talking to my kids about money? I hear the
Funny
camp of,
story. Yeah.
I don't want to burden them, or this is too much for them to be worried about, because growing up, maybe I carried that feeling of stress about money or lack. Or I hear a, well, I don't want them to know how much I make, so I don't want to talk about it either. But what's your take on the right age or the right developmental or the right situation? When do we talk to our young kids about money?
Which we talk about money all the time, especially anytime you're in an opportunity to, and we don't use cash as much. And so these opportunities don't feel like they present themselves as many times as maybe they used to in the past when we were a more cash forward society. But anytime you're in doing a transaction, that's a great time to talk about money. Oh, do you know what this dollar means? Do you see that it has a one? Do you see that it has a five? And like even doing math, right? Because we all need math. And so anytime there's a transaction happening, when you're at the store, helping them look at the little tags, can you tell me what those numbers are? And at first it'll feel like a fun number identifying game. But then you can add in elements of, well, between this apple juice and that apple juice, do you know which one has the bigger number? Do you know what the bigger number means? That means that we have to give more of our dollars in order to get that apple juice. Now, that's okay if that's the apple juice we really like because it tastes better or because we think it's healthier for our bodies. But I just want you to know that that's how you know the difference, right? And then when you're at if you're in a restaurant and you're getting the opportunity to pay a bill, how do you interact with the person who's bringing the check, right? This is an opportunity to share manners and how to ask questions and how to say thank you. And so all of these things are part of it. Because we are a society that's built on trading things with money, then every time we have one of those interactions is a way to talk about it. And it's not always about, well, this is expensive, because that's relative, but just
Mhm.
maybe about the numbers, about the quality, about something we really enjoy about that thing, about how we get the money and that we have to wait for our change.
Got it. And the order, right? The order of, if we buy the apple juice, then are we able to get our trash bags and light bulbs or whatever? Oh,
Yeah.
such a great example. And transitioning into the book, I want to hear a little bit more about Madeline's story. We don't want to spoil it for everyone, but I want to know, like, the genesis of it. You shared, she said, when's my book coming out? But how did you pick that story? Because I bet there are so many stories when it comes
Yes. And
to money and being your daughter and putting her work into the world.
she has told me she has lots more stories to tell. So this is just the first one from
Yay.
Madeline. So once I found someone to draw the pictures, and she had already told me that she loves unicorns, so it would have something to do with the unicorn. And I said, okay, well, do you have any money stories that you think we can tell other kids about? And she said, yeah, Mom, do you remember that time we went to the store? And I was like, uh-oh, where are we going with this? And I asked for that unicorn stuffy and you told me no. I said, yeah, I remember. And she said, but then remember I looked in my piggy bank and I almost had enough money. I said, yeah. And then remember I did some jobs and then I had enough money and then we went and got the unicorn. I said, yeah. She said, we should tell kids about that. We should tell kids that when they want stuff, they got to check their piggy banks. Right. And so I was like, well, that totally
I
works. So
love it.
it literally starts with the scene of us in the store and me kind of being like, nope, we're not getting the unicorn today. And her devising a plan for how she can make the difference between the $2 she had and the $10 she needed, and how she had a fun journey getting there. And generosity is a really important core value of mine. And I can tell it's taking hold with the kids, thank goodness, because she also said, and kids need to know that they can give, they can share. And so as part of the story, as she's doing these different jobs for the neighbors to earn the money for her stuffy, she divides her money up between some money she's going to save for something she needs later, the money she's going to spend for her unicorn, and the money she's going to use to give or to share. And it ends up very cute with her giving a special gift to somebody else.
I love that because not only are we teaching the concept of acquiring something we want and putting in the work to get there, that's an important life skill. But what I'm also hearing is there's some reflection on the bigger purpose of money, that sometimes we're not meant to just spend everything we earn. And for some people, that's a really foreign concept of like, well, everything I make, I should keep because that makes it better. And I love the angle of generosity, especially the earlier we instill that value. Again, goes back to what we started with someday when I have more time. Well, someday when I have more money can really creep in that generosity angle. So I'm so glad that that's part of the book. What was when you were putting it together, when you were writing it and doing the process? You've authored books before that are amazing. What was different about this journey?
I wanted it to in writing the words, I still wanted it to sound like her, right? Like she told me the story and I had to put it in a story format that anyone could read and get the lessons from, but I still wanted it to sound like her story.
Mm,
And so we went back and forth once I had it written down, and we put it out on different pieces of paper to see if I got the order right, because I was making sure that I got the story mostly right. And she had me change some things. She said, no, mommy, that's not how we say that. We say it like this. Or I think I should do this instead. And it was really great to let her still be the driver, even though I kind of had to do the work of taking it from her verbal story onto written word so that other people can then absorb it. And I think what is so cool about it is very much a kid book, right? Like it it talks, it sounds like her, and it's things that kids would do, right? Because these are things that she said she did or would do. And it gets to tap into, I think, the things we already are working to teach our kids, some of us better than others, right? Around the importance of sharing, around kind of making a plan. And what my hope is, and I think hopefully one of the surprising gifts from doing this project with her will be, is there are grown-ups who would never read my book, right? For all types of reasons, right? Like they feel like their financials are not in the right place. They feel like I'm not the right teacher for them. It's just not the right time to get their financials to a different place. But maybe they'd get a book for their kid and they'd be like, well, maybe I could do it, right? That maybe I'll spark something for the whole family about how to have some of these conversations in a way that feels pretty good instead of feels yucky.
Ah, that is so important to take those emotions or those perceptions away, that sometimes we as adults we get in our patterns, and to be creative and to play and to be inspired. We all read our kids' books until they start to read them back to us.
Mhm.
And the value of what we're putting in those messages doesn't just stop with them,
Yeah.
especially if they're taking action. So, What was the most surprising thing or the most interesting thing Maddie did to earn money to buy her stuffy?
Washing cars. I didn't realize that she would be into that. But then I was like, well, it's water and soap, and you get a little messy. But offering to wash people's cars as a pretty young kid, but and doing a great job on the lower half.
I love it because, yes, water, bubbles, fun, hose, absolutely.
Right.
So the book is coming out on not March, May the 6th.
Yes.
What should people expect when they go to this website and they get their pre ordered copy? What's in it for them for being one of the first ones to help Maddie's vision come to life of not just spreading across the country, but across the world?
We have some cool bonuses. She helped us pick out some really nice bookmarks, and we're trying to put some other little goodies in those pre order packages as well. And then she's been practicing her signature so that she can sign every book. So she's been practicing writing her name. It won't look like a third grader's, cursive, but you will see Maddie written somewhere in the book for you. And so you'll get an original signed copy from a 6-year-old author, which is pretty darn cool.
I absolutely love that. Love that. Love that. And one of the last questions that I like to ask everybody before we wrap up is, we know talking about money is important, and we also know that kids say the darndest things. What would be a quote, a phrase, a moment, a memory where your kids just said something crazy or surprising when it came to money?
So the other day, my son, we were having breakfast. So my son is 4 and he doesn't really love to sit for meals. He like takes a few bites, goes and does something else, comes back, takes a few bites, goes and does something else. And this particular time, he'd gone upstairs and was gone for a little bit longer. So I was like, let me go check on him because we've got to keep the morning moving.
Mm.
And I go, "What are you doing?" He says, "I need $2." And I said, "Why do you need $2?" So I see he's looking in the piggy bank and he's looking for more dollars. And I'm like, "Sweetie, why do you need $2?" He was like, "Oh, because daddy bought me a rocket and I have to give him $8, but I only have 6." So apparently they had gone somewhere and my son had negotiated a toy purchase, but my husband must have told him, much like I sometimes do, like, well, we have to take the money from your piggy bank if you're going to buy this toy. And so my son was very focused on finding 2 more dollars for his toy. And I was like, okay, all right, well, let's find you $2, son, because he was focused, very
I
focused.
love it. I love it. And I think that could be a whole nother conversation, is the parenting that can be different and similar when you have two adults that have come with very different backgrounds to now raise these wonderful human beings with a whole new set of custom values for the Bishop family. So, Darla, thank you so much. I am going to drop your website because there are so many great ways to get connected with you, from speaking to authoring to all of the amazing content that you have. So please check out darlabishop.com. And always remember, it is never too early or too late to start raising confident, capable, money wise kids. This book, Madeline's Money Adventures, makes it easier just to begin that conversation. So thank you so much, Darla. And if you enjoyed this interview, please share it with one parent who you know might benefit from this information. Thank you so much, Darla. I appreciate you.
For having me.